Let's talk about the basic fretting technique. So in this case here, we're literally just going to be observing our fretting hand. This is how we create different notes on one particular string. So the frets, of course, being these little fret wires, and it requires our fingers to actually press on the string in those areas to change the pitch of the string. There's going to be an exercise coming up here shortly, but let's just talk about the basic technique and what it is that we need to think about. So this is less about doing this right now, although you will be doing this with me. There's not an exercise yet. I just want you to kind of understand from a 30,000 foot level, if you will, what are the particular things that we need to be observant of when we're doing this, okay? So first thing, you're playing on your fingertips. A lot of people consider this your fingertip, when in fact, this part directly, if you were to look at the hand straight on like that, that is the fingertip. So one thing that I would do with my students is, my one-on-one students, is always the first day they'd come in, is I would take a Sharpie pen and I would put little dots right on the very tips of their fingers. The reason being is, inevitably, most folks, when they play guitar, they get kind of relaxed right out of the gate, got their thumb up here, and now they're playing on the pads of their fingers. Now, later on, as you become more attuned to your actual playing, right, and your technique gets tuned in, then you might be able to use the pads of your fingers a little bit. But as a rule, you don't want to do that. Here's why. The tip of your finger is, number one, it's harder. Also, when you're playing a chord, if you're playing on the pads of your fingers, now your fingers are laying on other strings that should be playing out. So if I were to play this chord with all the proper technique, but just not be playing on my fingertips, then the chord might sound like this. I got a lot of muted notes. Okay, that's not what we're looking for. We want to sound like this. So playing on those fingertips is really, really important. Another thing that you want to be aware of is your nails. I know the ladies like to have longer nails, and that will get in the way of your fretting hand. I know Dolly Parton has very long nails and plays guitar, but that's not how she learned how to play guitar. She can play like that now, and like I said, once you learn how to do it the proper way and you're not fighting these other variables, because as you know, guitar is challenging whether you have all the variables lined up or not. So why not set yourself up for success? Trim those nails back to the place, you know, I do them all the way to where they can't go any further. Obviously, I'm not hitting the quick. You don't want to do that. That's painful. But if you just cut the nails back as far back as possible to where you've got no nail hitting the fretboard, then you're going to be in good shape, okay? Another thing you want to do is, since this is our fret here, we want to be as close to that as possible without going over. And there's a leverage issue here. So if we're back here, it's like all the pressure of my finger here is going onto the nut here and not onto the fret. So that's why we get that muted or buzzing sound, is because we're not close enough to the fret. Now there are other reasons that may be causing that sound. Typically, if your neck is not adjusted right, your guitar is not adjusted in some way, see a guitar luthier for help with that. But for most beginners, they're not pressing hard enough, or they're not on their fingertips, and then they're getting sounds like that muted sound, or maybe even like a buzzing sound like this. So the way to fix that is to take that finger, play on the fingertip, and move it all the way up to the fret. The fret, of course, is this wire, so we're moving it just right behind it. We're not going over. If we go over, we're going to get this type of sound, a muted sound. Again, now the finger's coming past the fret wire and it's muting it. But if we take the string, we press it down right behind that fret wire, now we have all the leverage that we need. We're playing with our fingertip, so the fingertip's harder, remember. That's going to make it the easiest and least amount of pressure that we have to press down on the string. Okay, so getting right close to it, but not going over with that, use that fingertip, okay? Another thing that we really want to do is leave some room in between the guitar neck and the palm of your hand. When we're holding a shovel or a bat or something that we don't want to lose grip of, we palm it. But when it comes to playing guitar, we can't have that same mentality. We've got to take our thumb, drop it behind the back of the neck so that we have some room right in this area here between the neck and the palm, the webbing of your palm. Because what that does is that allows the hand to come out front, and we're going to need to do that in order to play on your fingertips. If I'm using all the techniques that I'm showing you here in this video and I palm the neck, now what happens is I literally can feel the pads of my fingers touching the other strings, which of course we don't want to do because that's going to mute the chord. So we want to drop that thumb. Now of course what's going to happen here is you're using muscles that you're not using to the same capacity. So those muscles are going to get sore. It's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. You're going to want to get lazy with it. I can promise you, don't do that in the beginning. Now, when you see your favorite artist playing guitar and you see them with their thumb over the top of the neck, which I do that a ton, but I've gotten used to it and I know how I can do it now that I've learned it the right way. You've got to go through this rite of passage, doing it the right way before you can cheat with your thumb there and do that, okay? In fact, I have lessons for how to do that later on. Now, you also want to use all of your fingers when fretting. So if you have if the tab or notation is saying 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't want to use your first finger for all of them. The reason that you don't want to do that is because you're really limiting yourself. Now, you've got 4 fingers that can get out front here and do their thing. If you're just concentrating on the first and second finger because they're the easiest for everyone, by the way, not just you, and not just you have the weak pinky or the weak ring finger. Everybody's like that. So again, that's why we're practicing. That's why we've got to do this. So you want to use, for the 4th fret, you want to use the 4th finger. For the 2nd fret, the 2nd finger. For the 3rd fret, the 3rd finger. And for the 1st fret, the 1st finger. That's really going to be the basic protocol moving forward. If we needed to play it up here at the 5th fret, then we would shift up to the 5th position, meaning our first finger's behind the 5th fret, and then here we have 5, 6, 7, 8, played with fingers 1, 2, 3, 4. If we needed to slide up to the 9th fret, then it's what's logical. If you were playing a scale, you can see that I'm not doing any shifting. I'm just using the fingers as they need to be used. Now later on you can change that, but again, it's best to learn good habits up front, and then later on if you want to change that for a specific purpose, you can do that. Now, this is the most important part of this lesson is to curl the last knuckle of your hand. The one that's closest to your fingertip, you want to be able to bend that to your maximum ability. And I always say is put your hand up in the air and just like look at that knuckle curled. Can you curl that last knuckle to like a 90 degree? If you can, up in the air, then you definitely can do it here on the guitar. But just try it. Put your hand up in the air and do that. And if you can curl that, white knuckles right there, that's fine. I'm curling those knuckles as much as possible. Because when you come to this guitar here, you're going to want to think that knuckle, that top knuckle is curled as much as possible. Because later on, when you decide to bring your thumb over the top of the neck, you can still play a full chord because you've curled that knuckle. All right? Now, I know some of you are just practicing this for the first time. You're going to find that your fingertips hurt a bit. You're also going to find that the muscles in your forearm and in your hand are getting tired because just like going to the gym for the first time in a long time, you're conditioning those muscles. They're not used to the strain that you're putting them under. Nothing to worry about, but just understand that it's going to take some time for those muscles to develop and get caught up with your desire to learn the guitar. It's going to be a little bit painful at first. It's going to take some time. I get asked all the time, how long should it take? It's completely subjective. Depends on how much you're practicing, depends on how the guitar is set up, how long you're practicing, how hard are you pressing down, which by the way, you should only be pressing down as much as it takes to actually play the note. There's no need to do more. Here I'm playing this, I'm going to say I'm pressing down with like a 2 from 1 to 10, I'm pressing down with like maybe a 2 in strength, or I could press down with a 10. And it's not going to do anything different other than wear my hand out. So you don't want to do that. For folks that have had arthritis, you might, or have arthritis or some sort of other medical condition, this could be a little bit challenging for you, but if you want to play, obviously, you're going to probably face that. I personally have had wicked arthritis when I was in my 20s due to the way that I ate. I found that cutting out inflammatory foods like grains, animal products, that sort of thing helped me a ton. So find out the path that's going to be best for you, where you could cut some of that inflammation out. That's going to really help with arthritis and any pain that you might experience that's other than just your basic, fingertip pain or muscle pain because of the strain. Have a light touch. This is just an introduction, so I do want you to attempt and to go ahead and as I'm speaking in this video, watch this again and try these different techniques, because you need to be cognizant of them when we go into dexterity exercise number 1, which is coming up. Let's keep going.